Jackson Katz calls himself an ordinary guy who became outraged at how very ordinary men's violence is against women. He says he realized he could do something about that violence because he was a man, a white guy, a heterosexual, and a successful all-star football player. Katz has founded several violence prevention programs, and as presenter Pearl Stewart told the gala audience, he thinks working with men and boys is the best hope for preventing gender violence because men and boys are the ones doing it.
Please join me in welcoming Jackson Katz. Thanks, Pearl.
Thank you. Thank you, Pearl. I have to thank Rita Henley Jensen and Women's eNews for giving me this. This is a high honor for me. I really appreciate, to say the least, being a man among so many extraordinary women, both my fellow honorees, the previous year's honorees, as well as so many of the great women and men, but some of the great women in this room. Thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate it. Historically, the issues of men's violence against women, sexual assault, sexual harassment, domestic violence, sexual abuse of children, all those issues have historically been considered women's issues, but respectfully, I think that's part of the problem. Because a lot of people see them as women's issues, and a lot of men don't pay attention as a result. And so much of my work is about reframing the issue, or reframing the paradigm. And so right now, most people's thinking about the issues of domestic and sexual violence in the United States as well as around the world, most people's thinking is that they're women's issues that some good men help out with. And we need to change that thinking. These are men's issues, okay? Men are committing the overwhelming majority of violence against women and children, as well as against other men and boys, and we need to say that out loud. Now, when women say it, and women have been saying it for decades and centuries, and some of the women in this room are some of the pioneers of this work in this country as well as around the world, when women say it, they get shouted down often, they get called names, they get called male basher, angry man haters, and those kind of those are some of the kinder epithets that women hear, right? And so one of the things that I would like to say to the men here is that one of the roles that we as men can play is we can stand up and support women. We can say some things because of sexism that we can be heard saying that women can't be heard saying. We need to start saying this stuff out loud, guys, and to each other, not just to women. Men need to be challenging each other about sexism and about men's violence against women. And I have to say, I'm very happy to be part of a growing movement, a multicultural movement in the United States, as well as an international movement of men around the world who are finally building on women's leadership, going into parts of male culture that have historically been either apathetic about these issues or openly hostile or resistant to women's efforts to educate and politicize them. There's a growing movement of men who are finally saying, enough is enough, we need to start standing with women and start standing up as men and speaking out on these issues and make these issues our issues as well as women's issues. In the domestic violence field in this country, in the United States, there's a slogan over the last number of years that some of you might have heard. It says, domestic violence is not just a woman's problem, it's everyone's problem. Well, I have a problem with that slogan. Why? Because if you do a little math, okay, a little subtraction, if it's not just a woman's problem, who else is there? Right? It's another way of not saying it's a men's problem. And I'm here to say we need to say it's a men's problem, but more than that, it's a men's challenge. And I would say, specifically, people will say to me, you work with young boys and young men, and that's important. But you know what? The first work that needs to happen is not with boys and young men. It's with men with power, men with institutional authority, men with political power and business power and labor unions and the sports culture and the media culture, right? We need men with power to say that enough is enough and to start using our resources to change the situation. I'm going to, one last thing, I just want to say to the women here and then something to the men. To the women, I want to say, I wouldn't be doing this work. None of the men who are doing this work would be doing it. We're not for the leadership of women. There's no doubt about it. Women have been incredible on so many different levels. I'm standing right in front of one of the great leaders in our country in the domestic violence movement, Rita Smith. So we always honor women's leadership and never say that we need to take the place of women. We need to build on women's leadership and work collaboratively with them. I also want to say women's leadership, not just in this field, but in generally against sexism and for gender equality, is not just necessary because girls and young women need good role models. It's because the future health and survival of our species is dependent on women's leadership, okay? It's as simple as that. And finally, to the men, I just want to say, guys, I know that the men here are likely strong supporters of women or you wouldn't be here, okay? But we need to start challenging other men, including ourselves, to do more. And if you haven't, as a man, spoken up about men's violence against women, stand up now. I mean, take the first step. I don't mean right now. All right? But take the first step, you know? It's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but we need more of you, more of us to take some risks and be leaders. And that's why I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be part of this event. Good luck to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.